document is very critical if it can be kept track of the creation and modification time. So this is very, very crucial for the business world. Right, so now we're coming to the consensus part. So what is the consensus? So this is a trusted delegated proof of stake. So we actually use the DPoS. So you will notice there are many consensus features. We are trying to combine a few DPoS and VRF. So the trusted DPoS has 4 phases. So in the next slide, I'm going to introduce you how I'm going to implement the consensus. Right. So basically, in this by doing this trusted DPoS, we are going to elect the candidates and we are going to form a committee, and then eventually you are going to have a proposed block, and then you are going to have a finalized block. Alright. So this slide shows you the consensus workflow. Right. So to start, you have a candidate election. Right. And then move on, you will have the committee voting, a random committee selected from the candidate using the VRF, right? So this is another consensus. And then once you have predefined blocks, so every voted committee node process will propose a new block, and it's going to broadcast to the network. So once the predefined is there, and then it will create the immutable block, and all these will be executed. So eventually, we are going to have this transaction. All right, the transaction will preserve the privacy of the patient. I'll just give you an example. Okay, what happens in US when they are doing the pharmacy claims, right? So data showing here is that in the calendar year 2017. This figure is actually based on the IQVIA, right? And so you will notice that the data actually reported are from a sample of retail pharmacy. It actually represents only 93% of the retail prescription drugs, right? At the state level. This data can be projected to represent 100% of the prescription drugs if we are going to implement the blockchain technology to consolidate all the data here. So there will be a huge difference. All right. So now let's look at one of the subchain. All right. So this is very critical, and this one is what we call the EHR subchain. I know the font is a bit small, so let me try to explain to you. So on the top, we have those different types of data coming in, right? So undergo those pre-processing, you are going to have our source data set, all right? So this serves as our source data lake. So once it has undergone some harmonization and also post-processing, it will be ready as the working data set, all right? So once the working data set is there, it's going to scrutinize by the data governance, and then it can be used as a data access layer. So all the clinical practitioners can access this data. So what they can use the data is that they can probably do some diabetes risk evaluation, right? Just do the data analysis. They are going to see whether the patient is highly risk to have the diabetes. All right. So I will just give you a contrast example. So what happens is that previously, right? Previously, the EMR worked well within a practice. They are limited because they do not easily travel outside the practice. All right. So they are very limited. They are very restrained. So in fact, if you notice that the patient's medical record might even have to be printed out and then have to be mailed to another provider to see it. So it is very, very troublesome. With all these, it will become very, very handy, so it will become very, very convenient. And so now I'm just going to give you an overview about the protocol we use. All right. So all these, the protocol we adopt is actually global standard. Just to highlight here, so we are actually based on the need to know basis. So a user must develop a criteria. So the user must have this criteria which set out which of the needs to see identifiable health information, right? And then we have passed the control back to the user, right? And then the consent must be obtained, all right? A patient written consent to disclose the health information must be obtained to guarantee the privacy and confidentiality. So this is a technology, all right? So we have innovated in terms of the identity management and also in terms of the access control, and also how we're going to have this DAP, Eoch DAP, all right? It's one of the providers that need to share anonymize the patient data with researchers. I use this slide to give you an overview of the workflow. Alright, so if you look at this, so that workflow in a Eoch is like, let's say you have this, this DAP is one of the providers that need to share and anonymize the patient data with researchers. So what is going to happen is like this. So the clinician is going to send a data sharing request first to the DAP portal, and this request will initialize a block transaction in a ledger. And the DAP portal forward the request to the back-end server and get the researcher the public key first, and then return the requested key, and then log generated token, and the request to access the available data shared by the others and upload the private encryption key, and forward back the requested response and get all the token accessible to the researcher and return all the requested token, and then request to update the display. So in the Eoch token, so in the first stage, 20% has been used in the marketing, right? So out of the 20%, 50% is for the research and development, and then 30% is actually used for the pre-sale, and 40% is actually used to stimulate the early ecosystem. And this is our partners. As you will see that we have AI companies, we have hospital practitioners, we have health insurance companies. And this company is from Israel, and this is from German. All right, give you just a few examples how we can apply the Eoch in a real application. So if you look at the slides, we do have these applications such as the personal health tracking or precision medicine, telemedicine, P2P healthcare data market. And let me just highlight one case. One is this personal health tracking. So nowadays you will notice that patients will be able to combine previously scattered medical report, right? So now it can come. All these data can be collected through wearable devices. With this complete report, control the medical history, the patients will be able to accurately and rapidly access and share personal medical information during the clinical care. So if they are going to manage their personal health care better. And so this is one of the applications. Another application I'm going to zoom into is this social network service, right? So the social network service, Eoch will create a communities, especially for some patients with very rare diseases. So patients who must fight the same disease can benefit from sharing the information, and they are going to establish a relationship. In addition, the medical providers and researchers who are interested in the disease can also naturally engage with the community and enriching the experience of fighting the disease. So this is our roadmap. We have started 2 years back, right? August. So the project has started by using the idea of sharing every healthcare information based on blockchain. And then last year, November, we have our first healthcare information sharing standards version 1 release. And then this year, May, we have our first white paper release. If you need a copy, you can also approach me. And then for next month, we have our ERC20 token distribution at ICA launch. And then in this December, we are going to have a consensus model for the healthcare data generation version 1. And then next year, April, our root chain version 1 will be formally released. Other subchain will start to test. Lastly, so in 2020 May, we are going to have the healthcare trading platform version 1 release. I'm coming to the very end of the presentation. Alright, so this is our team. We have those blockchain experts, and some from Israel, and some are from Singapore. And this is our CMO, and he's sitting right here. He can also answer some questions you may have. And some advisory board professor, Sen Kan, and then we have Daniel and Changzhen. So with this, I'm going to thank you for your attention, and I will answer any questions you may have.